A lot's gone on since we last spoke to you, provided a podcast for you. We've had a game against Arsenal. We've had the result against Man City. We probably all thought that Steven Gerrard would have been sacked by now. Find out what else has been going on. This is Talk of the Trinity.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett. With me is Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest. And for friends of those across the pond and their version of football, the NFL starting again this week. So they're getting excited for the season start. But it's already getting stuck in over here. I mean, we haven't even got time to talk about all the things that have been happening over the last week, 10 days since we've last been on the air, because we are thick in the middle. And if that was a phrase you never heard of before, then that will be on t-shirts soon. Thick in the middle. We are thick in the middle of all things Villa in terms of the Premier League season. Games coming thick and fast. Managerial merry-go-round is already in swing in unexpected ways. And it turns out that an esteemed pundit on this show, prediction made, I think it might have been in the last episode, about a certain manager not being sacked. Well, turns out that was completely wrong. If you want to know what I'm talking about, if you weren't listening to our previous episodes, then you can check out all of our back catalogue on our audio providers, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Google, some other places. We're on FanHub. You can go and watch the visages of Mr. Trinity and me on our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity. And you can keep up to date with all those fast-moving Villa stories, non-Villa stories, polls, reactions, everything going on is on our Twitter page at Talk of the Trinity. Go and like, retweet, subscribe on all our social media channels. Really do appreciate all of the input there. And speaking of the input, we've got to get straight in with what's been going on since we were last with you. Seems a long time ago that we went to the Emirates on a Wednesday night in August. We lost. We scored a corner. 2-1. Not really much more to say in respect to that, because what was really going on, what was really heating up on that day was the transfer window was slamming or coming towards a conclusion during the course of that week. And Villa did some business on the last day of the transfer window. One player who we thought was probably coming, we'd heard the rumours, Bedernak from Southampton, and then another player who came slightly out of, well, left field, I suppose literally to the left of Birmingham, from Wolverhampton, Dendoncker. What did you think of our business, Will, in terms of incomings, or was it more for your perspective who we kept that was more important?
I thought the two signings, they make sense when you listen to what Gerrard's saying. The profile of them, tall players, defensive players as well, who can add to that stability, which we've been lacking a little bit this season. The only thing that maybe would have improved that is to bring John Terry back, as we touched on in the last podcast. Bednarek, he's had his naysayers at Southampton over recent times, but every now and again a player just needs a move. They need a fresh start. And considering that he was this close to joining West Ham only for a telephone call and a pop round the house from Stevie G has got him over to the Villa, then it just goes again to show the pull that Gerrard has to bring players in. And we've said that all along. One of his key strengths, a Premier League legend, and players want to play for him and hopefully improve under his guidance and that of his backroom team. Dendoncker, the big donk, the bloke
Yep.
in the centre. He was incredibly left field. To see that there were rumours that Wolves may let him go, and West Ham was sniffing round him, and suddenly it's us who is shooting down the motorway towards to have a little chat again with Stevie G and to see what's going on at Bodymore, and to eventually sign a Belgian international, one of the best international teams in the world at present, if not the best. Fantastic signing, versatile player as well, who can play at centre back, can play in midfield, potentially frees Kamara up to be the 8 that we needed, or frees Kamara and Louise up, McGinn even, so he doesn't have the defensive responsibilities. We could see a shift in formation as well. Hopefully, he gets over that sore throat of his rather quickly, and we get to see him in action at the weekend. But no, those were two big signings. In regards to reference as to the business that we didn't do, I think it was absolutely awesome that we didn't sell Douglas Luiz to your Arsenal. I thought it really made, you're a winner either way, but it really showed that we're no pushovers when it comes to transfers, that if you don't give us what we want, then he's not going. Okay, you'll probably go and sign for Juventus or Milan or somebody in January for 6 months before his contract's due. But as we've touched upon before, if he helps us get higher up the table, a couple of million more based upon the position that we finish, if Gerrard has learned and can turn it round and we get into those European spots, it's only been a few games so far. If we can get into them, Douglas Luiz helps. That's just as valuable as getting 15, 20, 25, 40 million for him. I did find it hilarious, and I probably made this up a little bit in my own mind, that Arsenal turned around and said 20 million, and we went 25. They went 22, we went 27. They went 25, we went 40.
That's some good negotiating. Daniel Levy would be proud of that negotiating.
Oh, I tell you, it's like me and the kids when they go, can I have 15 more minutes on this? No, you can have 10, 15, 9, 15, 8, 14, 5. I've learned from Mr. Purslow, but that was a great keep. Not surprised to see Archer staying. I think we need to keep him around, especially as that Ismaila Sarr rumour never came to fruition again on deadline day.
Not a surprise for me, that one.
Well, there was talk that there were meant to be 3 players coming in and 3 medicals booked, and that Sarr was the 3rd one, and that we were always potentially going to go back in for him. Not as surprising. He hasn't been playing for Watford, though, either. I think one of the big transfers, though, on deadline day involving us was Irogbana going and joining QPR. He's made his debut. They didn't get the result that they wanted, but he's going to get a lot of minutes under his belt. He's working for Michael Beale, who Villa fans hold in high regard. Maybe John McGinn doesn't, rumour has it. But I think that's going to be a key one. And there are a lot of other players who are youth players that went out to various clubs. We saw Wright go out on loan. We've seen Crescent go out on loan as well, amongst others. Lindley as well, the under-23s captain. They all get minutes in their legs, playing regularly for teams, and it can only do us good, because it either means that they come back and they're raring to go to push for the first team, to go out on loan again to a championship team, or someone comes in and gives us some money that maybe we wouldn't have got if we hadn't put them out on loan. So a very good transfer window altogether for us, I think. I think it was a very good one, all in all.
No, I'd say in terms of Jan the man, who probably nobody is calling him apart from me, having a international centre-back, experienced international centre-back, but for nothing really in terms of on loan, where we got some injuries. I don't think you can argue too much with that. And as you say, a new change of scenery can perhaps make a difference. It sounds like from Southampton that things just went kind of spectacularly kind of wrong, kind of off the field, rather than perhaps on the field. And they got to a situation where he wasn't going to play there again under current management, and their losses hopefully gain. I mean, you'd hope in terms of, in the nicest possible way, he doesn't play too many games for us in terms of, because that would mean things have gone wrong in terms of those higher up the pecking order in that defensive twosome at centre back. But he's a good option to have, like Augustinsson at fullback. On loan, experienced international for not a lot. You can't really argue too much with that. Dendoncker, I did have a chat with a Wolves fan known to us both after the sale had gone through, and they were fairly philosophical about it from their perspective. They got their money back, what they spent 4 years ago. So in terms of, for somebody who's nearly 30, over 30, just about over 30.
27, I think.
Somewhere kind of, back end of the 20s. That
he's an age.
Yeah, he is an age. He is a number. Age is just a number. So I see on Chinese fortune cookies. So in terms of where Wolves have come in the last couple of years, they got their checkbook out near the end of the transfer window back to Portugal to try and establish a Portuguese colony in Wolverhampton. Efforts continue abound. Getting a decent player, I'd say, in terms of my guess, with no inside information to confirm whether this is true, is that 3 weeks ago at the start of the season, Dendoncker was not on any list at Villa Park in terms of potential transfers coming in, and it is a result of what has happened during the first couple of weeks of the season that has led us to what you may call a typical transfer day signing, in terms of having to look around the aisle to kind of see what potentially may be available. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to be a good player for us over the next couple of years. In terms of Tim going out, I think we actually called it in one of our summer episodes of Tim going on loan to the Championship, maybe even to QPR.
Yep.
Go and have a listen to our previous episodes to see whether we are blowing our own trumpet or making stuff up. But in terms of that move, good move in terms of, if he can do it in the Championship, if he dominates in that defensive midfield role in the Championship, then next stop up is the Premier League. And in terms of the rumours, probably a bit more than a rumour at the moment, is that Gerrard doesn't seem to fancy Nakamba anymore after a good start under Gerrard, and then he got injured, and that appeared to be the end of that, in terms of his affections are now gone elsewhere towards Camera. So a place for Tim to make a name for himself at Villa next season, especially if he played two in that defensive midfield pivot role, if he has a good season at QPR. So that's a good move. And then in terms of the other players, so you mentioned going out on loan across the Football League, always good to get minutes under your legs, and we'll see if any end up having a similar story to, you probably say, in terms of most of the players going to League One, League Two, looking for a kind of a Caden Hessler kind of rise to from League One to the Championship, or League Two. Well, Hessler started last season in League Two, and now he's in the Championship. So hopefully see some of our younger players make that similar leap and look to press for a place in the first team squad next summer, realistically, you would say. Louise, yeah, I mean, in terms of realistically, do I think he's going to sign? No. But, we rolled the dice in terms of Chukwuemeka. I mean, there was a feeling then, who would have given us 20 million? I don't think we really thought that was possible. And especially with events that have happened at Chelsea. I mean, I don't know how much Thomas Tuchel had to do with signing Chukwuemeka, but depending on who comes next at Chelsea, at time of recording, not confirmed, various rumours flying around. Graham Potter has been linked. Pochettino has been linked, mainly because I think I said, to allude to the intro, to complete that circle, I said there was no chance Tuchel was getting sacked, and so there was no job at Chelsea for Poch. So that prediction may have aged fantastically well by the time you come to listen and watch this. But realistically, would we get 20 million from Chelsea if we tried to sell? Ignoring the fact the transfer window is shut, ignore that technicality. But there's no chance we get 20 million from him now. So fantastic bit of business. Rolled the dice again for Luiz. You know, in terms of, as you said, there is a possibility if we start moving up the table, qualifying, what look like we're qualifying for Europe or in a good run, he may stick around for an extra couple of years, perhaps. If he goes to Juve on a free, he goes to Juve on a free. I mean, and then in terms of, you look at it money-wise, we could have got 20, 25, perhaps, in August. Keep him around, hopefully contributes to the team not getting relegated, because in that worst case scenario, you could say we lost 25 million if he goes for nothing, but then the TV money we get for being in the Premier League covers that 25 million. Whereas if you take the 25 million now, and worst case scenario, which even negative Baz doesn't think would happen, if we got relegated, then we're losing a lot more than 25 million that we would have took. So, yeah, I mean, we will see where that goes with Luiz. I don't think he'll be here next season, but, you know, you never know. People said that about Neymar at PSG, and you probably did not think you would be hearing a comparison between Dougie Luiz and Neymar before you started listening to this podcast.
I think the thing for people to take from this podcast, as evidenced by Baz's predictions with Chelsea, is pause it, put it in your pocket, unless you've got it on Amazon or Google or Spotify, carry on listening, get down to the bookies. You want to put a tenner on the Villa to go down and Douglas Luiz to be at the club next season.
Yep.
A tenner each of them. Mate, your quid's in. I'll take 10% off every winning bet. That'd be great. Quit my job. See you later. Thanks.
So when you hear us previewing us away to Rotherham in September next year and Doug Luiz is captain, then there's going to be one very rich person who went and took that bet, went down the bookies, and we'll get him on the show to say how we changed their lives. But speaking of changing lives, our previous episode was a double preview of Arsenal and Man City, and there was talk about Gerrard and what was going on there. Moving on to Saturday night, just gone. 3rd of September, 5:30, Villa Park. Cameras there from Sky. Other cameras probably were available. Lights on. Villa 1, Man City 1. Talk about changing lives. Has that saved Gerrard's job?
Well, I don't think that Gerrard has pinched himself since the day, just in case he does wake up and it was all a lovely dream. Has it saved his job? No, it hasn't. The next two results are far bigger than Arsenal and Man City. And despite getting that positive and very positive result against Man City, if he goes and gets smashed by Leicester now and then loses to Southampton as well, then, to quote the great Noel Gallagher, he's dead in the water. You know, I don't think you see Gerrard in the Premier League for a while, and he potentially goes to a top championship team. However, unless Brighton want him, of course, Chelsea might want him. They're always singing about him. I think the result was fantastic, though. To think that everybody went in there and we did that Aston Villa thing that we always say that Aston Villa do. You go and you play a team and you think, God's sake, we're going to get smashed by them or whatnot, or we're going to lose because they haven't won for so long. You know, we do that. And on the flip side, I know we've said it'll probably happen against Arsenal, the fact they hadn't lost all season. It was that whole, we're not going to get a result against Man City. Oh, my days, they're playing De Bruyne, they're behind Haaland. They've put Kyle Walker in, they're going full strength against us, except that Jack's on the bench for Phil, in my opinion. But they had this amazingly strong team, and we got a result. And we were a lot better defensively. We were a lot better at shifting gear and getting the ball up the pitch when we needed to. We executed our game plan fantastically. It was going back to that whole, okay, we might not have all of the possession. We might have less possession, but we've got to be more decisive on the ball. We've got to make those moments count, which Gerrard always talks about, and we did. And, their goal that came was fantastic movement from Haaland. It was the one time he managed to get away from Tyrone Mings, really, in the match and get to that back post. It's got to be said, Tyrone Mings was brilliant against Haaland, really, when you look at that 90 minutes overall and the way that he marked him, the way that he bullied him at times, how physical he was. And we took our one chance, our one chance on target we took. We had a couple of others with Ramsey breaking through and taking a heavy touch. We had the one with Watkins in the first half also. Bailey fired wide. But that goal was absolutely phenomenal. And you've got to say, it was down to Jacob Ramsey, that little drop of the shoulder to get past Rodri. And Rodri, he's a bit of a div. Really can't stand him, but what a finish from Bailey. It was the right formation. It was what we called, with Bailey and JJ being closer up the pitch to Watkins. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But no, it hasn't saved his job. We're not going to think, we lost 3-0 to Leicester, 4-0 to Southampton, but we did get a point against Man City. It's those next few games. He's got to be looking over his shoulder, but it was nice to see a response and that the players put in a shift for him and for the fans to pull that out of the bag.
I mean, I agree with you in terms of, if the next couple of results go badly, then it will be a flat flash in the pan in a month's, 2 months' time. But it was important to build momentum, or to try and build momentum, or looking at another way to stop the increasingly downward trajectory of what had been happening at the start of the season. In terms of Arsenal game, was 2-1 on the score sheet, but it could have been 5-0 at half time, really. Arsenal absolutely mad us in that first half. But it wasn't the case for Man City, really. As you said, we executed the game plan. We talked, as you said, about having to be more defensive. Neither Coutinho or Buendia started. The pace of Leon Bailey. The only, great finish from him. The only way he was going to go in was first time. That slight keeper taken by unawares. Great finish. Executed perfectly. Could have been slightly more in the top corner. But no, I mean, in terms of it, a point Gerrard made in the post-match interviews, which I think is true and links to what you just said there in terms of playing for the manager and other such cliches, is we had done what we needed to do for the first 50 minutes. They had one chance and scored. They're world-class players, only need one chance. So, in terms of, you can keep them in your pocket for 89.5 minutes, but you can still lose a game. That's, Haaland is the master of looking like he's done nothing. And then you look at the score sheet after the game and he scored 2 or 3. And that's just the type of player he is. But the fact that we kept going after going 1-0 down, and there was a slight feeling of doom perhaps when Haaland scored, like a shark with blood in the water, thinking, oh God, this could really kind of go downhill very quickly. But kept going, picked ourselves up off the canvas. Other such cliches are available. Got the equalising goal. Some VAR controversies, we will say. But actually, no, it wasn't VAR controversy. It was the linesman. Good old-fashioned incorrect offside call from a linesman. Can't blame VAR for that, for the linesman raising his flag. Realistically, I think if the flag hadn't gone up, a City defender would have stepped in front of him. I don't think they would have let him had a free shot. But, it was a good finish. We can talk about that, but...
Negative Baz.
But, well, I predicted us to score before the game, which was more than so-called positive will. So I got half of the score right, but a positive performance all round in terms of a team who they've been smashing other teams left, right, and centre during the start of the season. Second in the table at time of recording. We're not second in the table at time of recording. So, you have to say, very good result. And in terms of, we did what we had to do in terms of the shape. I mean, I think you could say perhaps it was an obvious call in respect of having to tighten up, because more attacking players on the field, we would have got overrun in midfield. Sometimes the sensible call, the more obvious call, still got to make it, and we did. So I'd say in terms of overall feelings of positivity, that is potentially going to be more important than the result, depending on what. I mean, the two are linked, obviously. We wouldn't be feeling positive if we lost 4-0 but played well, like Spurs last season. But yeah, an unexpected delight. It's a bit like that secret gift underneath the Christmas tree, which you didn't know what it was or who it was from when you've opened it up, and you're like, I was not expecting that, but that has made my morning. Rather like if you had a deluxe box set of our previous episodes, having listened to that, you'd be like, this is fantastic gift. Let me book the week off work. But assuming you've done it, but assuming you haven't booked the week off work to celebrate the Villa point on Saturday, the increased performance, you will be gearing yourself up on the Saturday morning for the big game. I mean, we're in that stage of the season which sums up how we've gone so far, that every game is being described as a big game. This is the biggest game of the season so far. Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m, 10th of September, King Power Stadium away at Leicester. Prior to the game, at time recording, Leicester rock bottom of the Premier League. No wins, no incomings of any note until transfer deadline day, where they had to sign a replacement for Fofana, who managed to force his way out of the club to go to Chelsea, although quite whether he would be doing the same thing again when the manager got sacked a week later, probably. I still think he'd probably go to Chelsea. But their last Premier League game away at Brighton lost 5-2 and were an absolute defensive shambles. So we don't need to do much of a preview of this, do we? Will, based on our Villa lore, it's 3-0 Leicester, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think so. Jamie Vardy will be fit to play against us, regardless of whether he breaks his leg in training on Friday or not. And you'll go and smash a couple in. Maddison will up his game because he always does against us. Look, it's a big game, and Leicester are going to be thinking, okay, there's one team that we can take advantage of at the moment. It'll be the Villa, regardless of the point that we got against Manchester City. But you've got to worry about them. Well, you don't if you're not a Leicester fan. But looking at Leicester and seeing the players that have been linked with moves away from the club, because don't forget, there are transfer windows that are still open, and Soyuncu, there's talk that he's on his way out of Leicester. Fofana's left. Kasper Schmeichel, who was the linchpin really for a lot of that Leicester team, obviously events at Villa Park last year just played on his mind, and he had to leave the Midlands. But yeah, it's going to be a difficult game. Rodgers is under a lot of pressure. If the players aren't playing for him, hopefully it's that little bit easier for us, because the players that the Villa do seem to be playing for Gerrard or wanting to show that they deserve to be in that starting lineup. Leon Bailey, he's showing that he wants to be in that starting lineup. Ollie Watkins has got a point to prove to be the main man to bag a goal within the next couple of matches or so. A player who, when they came on against Man City, who impressed me in his short cameo, and it was a shame that his goal was wrongfully chalked out when he was onside. Philippe Coutinho, he was getting round. He's showing that he wants to be in that team. When he comes on, always tends to do good. So the players are playing for Gerrard or playing for themselves to get into that team. Louise may be a move away. So we should have enough to beat Leicester. We've done well there the last couple of seasons, getting the 1-0 win with the last-minute Ross Barkley goal.
Nope.
Free transfer, anybody? And last year with the 0-0, considering that performance against them was probably the last absolutely abysmally, awfully worst Villa performance that there has been potentially. The one before lockdown, the 4-0 defeat when Pepe Reina went running around like Benny Hill.
Yep.
It's going to be one of those games. I can see it being high scoring again, but I'm very hopeful that it'll be us on the right side and we won't do a typical Villa thing and lose to them.
Yep. I'm told by our research that Ross Barkley is actually signed for Nice, which appears to be a place for free transfers during the course of this. Something Aaron Ramsey is also there as well, enjoying life on the French coast. But from
Nice.
You know, it's nice if you nice if you can get it, especially if you got a biscuit as well. That always helps.
Nice in that.
Yep. But I think the thing with Leicester, they've still, as you mentioned, they've still got good players, but it's that reinforcements coming over the hill they haven't got. I think the goalkeeper you mentioned is a massive issue in terms of Danny Ward is current incumbent between the sticks. Shaky, I think is fair to say. And I think more importantly, I don't think the defence trust him. And that is a big issue. One of the goals Brighton scored on Sunday was a bit of a suicidal back pass from the centre-back. Bad touch from the goalie. Brighton scored from that. Centre-back taking none of the blame. Letting Ward know where he thought he was going. Ward let him know. And it's just little things like that, really, in terms of you can tell all things aren't going well. I mean, they've, still got Tillemans. Fantastic player. Even, players who easing their way into the team. Daka scored on Sunday. He looks decent. You look like he's probably going to be long-term replacement for Vardy. But it is just defensively, they are an absolute shambles. And it is always a sense of trepidation when you play a team. I think they've lost 5 on the bounce. Rodgers obviously not particularly happy in terms of post-match interviews. The board have come out and said, we got no money, so deal with it, kind of as it were. And it is with hesitation. No, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that bit for a moment. We'll come back to that. I'll ask a more slightly softball potential question. We mentioned in terms of Man City, the formation we played there was dictated by good old-fashioned cliches, such as wanting to keep it tight and manage Man City's attacking threat and look to hit them on the break. And it was a change of shape. And we had Coutinho and Buendia, who you may say are our 2 most creative players, both on the bench. Do you go for the same shape again at Leicester as we played against Man City, or do you switch it up?
It's hard to say what that shape was, isn't it, in some ways? Was it that 4-3-2-1 or was it more of a 4-3-3? I'm going to say that it was a bit more of the latter, even though it blatantly wasn't. No, I'd be sticking with a 4-3-3 against Leicester because I think when you push forward, you've got enough players with pace to hurt them. They're trying to think of their back line. They've got Justin James, they've got Luke Thomas, they've got Johnny Evans, and they've got Vestergaard. Is he?
I think he has been deemed missing in action probably from about the day he signed. I am just checking my records. I do believe it was Ndidi who played centre-back against Brighton on Sunday. Normally a defensive midfielder. Yeah, it was their back 5 again, including the goalkeeper. Danny Ward, Thomas, Evans, Ndidi, and Justin, as you mentioned. I remember we went through Leicester's team before we played them last time, a similar exercise, where we basically concluded they weren't very good defensively and we had nothing to worry about. In terms of going through that back 5, the opinion probably hasn't changed too much since they got Castagna, came off the bench, who is a good player. I've just got Pereira, I believe, is injured. Bertrand, who's injured. So going back to formation point, do you throw the attacking players on, go and attack the fullbacks?
I think, it was very much a case of we got a result from grinding out last time. It may be that Leicester, with their fans there, try and attack us a bit more, and we've got to play that counter attack again. So leave Bailey, Watkins, and JJ as the front three. Use their pace, get them forward. They all know where the goal is, even though they don't hit the back of the net as often as we'd like them to. And you can see Bailey and JJ causing problems for them. Watkins running in behind Evans will hurt them as well. I think, to be honest with you, out of all that back five that you've just mentioned, including the goalkeeper, the only player that I would have out of them is Ndidi to play defensive midfield.
Probably would agree with you there.
And that's it all. I mean, both teams are having defensive issues at the moment. We looked better defensively against West Ham and also against Man City. I didn't get to watch enough of the Arsenal game really to see us tested there, apart from the Dougie Luiz goal and the Martinez one.
Yeah, for first half, yeah, I think I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Arsenal could have had a hatful.
Yeah, fortunately I didn't see that. I was at Cadbury's football. But it's going to be one of those, and you think that those who dare and get the tactics even just a little bit right on Saturday will end up the winning side. And with our pace at the moment, and buoyed by the performance in the last game, especially Bailey, who's going to be thinking, "Yep, I did well. I'll lick my lips. I'll get another chance. I've been doing well in training. The gaffer likes me, and if he doesn't play me, my stepdad will sort him out."
I'm going to say, if Bailey doesn't play on Saturday, the social media team are going to have to be blocking that the agent's account fairly swiftly in order to ensure that barrage of messages are blocked from public consumption. I mean, in terms of, yeah, but if he's fit, he has to play.
Yes, definitely. And JJ as well, there's question marks, I think, only over a couple of positions. And I put out to the fans, to the Trinity verse, what they thought the formation should be and starting lineup. And you may be surprised to see that they want to change a formation. They want us to go 4-2-3-1. That's been the lineup of choice for a couple of weeks on the page. They've gone, unsurprisingly, with Emi Martinez in goal. They've gone for Luca Dean at left back. They've gone for Tyrone Mings. Callum Chambers, there was no votes again for Ezri Konsa, despite him starting to look a little bit better in matches
He did all right. He did all right against City. I mean, in terms of defensively, it was a decent performance all round.
He did all right against West Ham as well. And the shot took the deflection off him, but he could take a deflection off anyone. Ashley Young has been picked as the right back, and surprising in the way that Matty Cash is our first choice, but the performance that Ashley Young put in against Man City, you can't say he's rolling back the years because he was never a defender for us before, but he was fantastic. He gave them the hustle and bustle that they needed to rattle them. He was putting his body on the line, putting in some great sliding tackles and starting moves as well. So if Ashley Young was to play right back, I don't think I'd be too concerned. We have a call for Douglas Luiz and Boubacar Kamara as our two central midfielders, whether they're defensive or central. And then the front four would be Leon Bailey, Emi Buendia, Jacob Ramsey, Pips, Philip Coutinho, and then Ollie Watkins up front. So for the Villa fans, there's no room for John McGinn. There's no room for Danny Ings. So we quit the podcast effective immediately.
Yep. Thanks for listening, everybody. You're on your own. No, I mean, in terms of, I was just putting my waders on to get ready to go into those murkier waters in respect of John McGinn, and evidently the fans don't think, or a number of fans, because you know can't speak for every fan, but there are a number of fans who don't consider that McGinn deserves his place in the starting lineup. And previous listeners, first time, long time listeners, watchers will know that there's a special place in my heart for John McGinn. But as I have been saying during the course of this season, I don't think there's really, in terms of that kind of what you call the central midfield three. I mean, in terms of the attacking three, or however, attacking four, however much you're looking at it, may be a slightly different situation. But I don't think anybody in that kind of central part of the field can say, hand on heart, I've been playing well enough to say that I'm a nailed-on starter in this team. And
maybe Kamara would.
Yeah, Kamara, he'd be the only one who you could say. And I think not excuses. The fact he's new to the league and he's playing this well while still getting used to the league. I mean, imagine how good he's going to be once he's fully up to speed. So the early buzz around Kamara was correct, it appears, in terms of that. But in terms of the players ahead of him, I mean, McGinn falls into that category in terms of this performance. You take the armband off, then it was a situation we talked about at the time in terms of, you know, the Mings-McGinn captaincy switch. I think the reasoning was sound in terms of wanting Mings to focus more on his defensive game. I mean, didn't quite help when we then dropped him immediately. But take that off Mings, give it to McGinn in terms of help. That's kind of his kind of all combative style. It would work well. Hasn't really so far in terms of improved performances from McGinn. So if you're looking at a performance perspective, I don't think you can't really argue too much if he didn't play Saturday, to be honest. I mean, in terms of, I think when you're going into the realms of, well, nobody else has been any good either, that's not the greatest argument to play somebody. I mean, in terms of the shape, for me personally, I would keep the same shape as we played against City on Saturday, which for me, I would keep the same team for consistency, which would mean McGinn would play. What a surprise. But no, I mean, in terms of if he doesn't play, if it's a situation where somebody else comes to that midfield, you can't really argue too much. But I think in terms of, I think we have to try and avoid it being there's been a lot of clamour in terms of, oh, McGinn, he's not being good enough. You know, he shouldn't be playing, you know, got to get him out. You know, some people don't think he should be captain, you know, don't agree with that decision at all. Say that happens. Say he doesn't play Saturday. Say he's on the bench. You got people like, yeah, he's not playing. Yeah, this is great. You can't have that be the end of it. I mean, at the end of the day, we got a Scottish international player who, for, you know, you can argue about the specific dates, times over the course of his Villa career, but more positive than negative, I think most people would have to say, in terms of his performances for Villa. They're still clearly, when in form, a very good player in there. I mean, in terms of if we were in the Champions League or, you know, kind of Europa League, you'd have an argument about whether he'd be in the starting 11. You know, if you're in that position, maybe not. The reality is we're not. Reality is we're bottom half currently, literally in the table, 17th at time of recording. So I think the rush to bin him off, I think, needs to be tempered by the fact that currently, in the predicament that we're in and the places we want to get to, from being bottom half to Europe, we need John McGinn in form to contribute, whether that's playing every week, maybe not. But I think it doesn't really solve the problem. Like, it doesn't really solve our problems. Get rid of him and we're certainly going to be a fantastic team. We're not at that stage yet. So I'd say in terms of, maybe we play somebody else on Saturday moving forwards. But if we are going to be in the top half of the table this season, we need McGinn to be on form, justifying his place in the team, playing at least 25 games, is my view.
I mean, the thing with McGinn is only a couple of years ago, there were rumours of Man United, 50 million, that he was the best centre midfielder outside the top six. And, to become a bad player overnight, it doesn't happen. Things can affect you. And I've got two questions for you now. So two things that I've seen on Twitter, and one links into what I've just said there about John McGinn. Things can affect you, and that can be a reason why there's dips in form. Has John McGinn been the same player since he launched himself into a Southampton midfielder, broke his ankle, and came back from there? I personally don't think he's been as robust and as good since then for the whole part. But there have been periods where you look at the lockdown season, and he was fantastic in midfield. So I think it's unfair to say that that moment of madness against Southampton has been the catalyst for all this. Would you agree?
I would agree in the extent that from recollection, the Southampton tackle. Actually, no, I was going to say it's roughly that's the halfway line between his Villa career before his Villa career after. I don't have the numbers in front of me to know whether that is entirely correct. But if we take that as a halfway point in terms of if you're going to judge overall performances before the tackle, after the tackle, yeah, I probably would agree that overall he was better before that tackle than he was after. I agree with you in terms of that first half of the lockdown season where we were smacking Liverpool 7-2, Arsenal 3-0 away like that. He was brilliant. And a lot of players in that team were, because inevitably you can't be terrible and go and win those games. So there have been, I think it's the consistency, or, well, the problem is that it's been consistently not as good since then, really. But yeah, I'd say overall, if you're totting up the average ratings, the match ratings, then yeah, I would say they're probably higher before the tackle than after.
I mean, the other thing about that is that most of those matches would have been in the Championship, and he was a class above everybody else in the Championship, wasn't he? That midfield that we had was the best midfield in the league, in my opinion, at that time. I did see one other tweet, and the backlash that the lad got for putting it out was to be expected. Was to be expected, really. And it was about McGinn. It could have been you that was sending it under a different name, but it was. And I'm interested to see what you say. I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm interested to see. It was in the last 10 years, John McGinn is the most influential player that Aston Villa have had in the last 10 years. True, false? What are you saying?
As somebody had amnesia of trying to forget Jack Grealish played for us, you kind of no, I mean, I don't think that's really much of a debate in terms of as I've said, I'm a big fan of McGinn in terms of value for money. In terms of the transfer, he's easily. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who we got better value for in the last 10 years than 3 million or whatever we paid for McGinn. Mm-hmm. Is for a large part of his career at Villa, I think he's been better than average. I mean, there's been some dips recently, but I don't think we could say in terms of he's been a passenger or that he's been crap for most of the time. I mean, yeah, this season things have come to a head. In terms of most influential, I mean, in terms of...
Except for Grealish, though, would John McGinn be second for you? Or is it Jack Grealish, a load of other players, and John McGinn? I mean, I agree Jack Grealish is the most influential player, to the point that Villa fans will love him back now and they remember all that he did for us, despite Jack Grealish really not playing very much for us until that final Championship season, really. That was his coming of age season for us, really.
I think in terms of the Premier League with Grealish, if we didn't have Grealish, we would have been relegated first season. Don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, in terms of, we talked about it before, the lockdown did help us in terms of resetting defensively, but even then, 4 games to go, I think most people thought we were sunk with 4 games to go. And we wouldn't have even been anywhere near having that opportunity to stay safe if it wasn't for Grealish. So I think for somebody who has that players who you can say in the team here, not in the team there. I think that summed up the following season, whereby we started the season well, as we mentioned, in terms of that lockdown season. Grealish gets what my lawyers advised me to say, injured, and that ended it. In terms of we weren't the same team without Grealish. I mean, by any metric, you can see in terms of you looking at points, goals, even the defence, bizarrely. I suppose because we had to do more defending at that time. So he's easily number one, Grealish. In terms of, it's an interesting question in terms of where you put number two, because I am off the top of my head minded to go with kind of your initial impression in terms of Grealish, everybody else. I mean, funnily enough, and this probably would get a massive backlash as well. Not from you, I don't think. I think you're quite. Oh, I'll throw this as a question for you because I think I know which way you're going to go.
Okay.
Would you say that Tyrone Mings had been more influential than John McGinn?
I would. Yeah.
Because that's an argument that I'm just coming off the top of my head in terms of, I mean, influence in all sorts of ways, perhaps. But
I think from when you look at where we were in the Championship when he came in, and McGinn had only been there a little bit longer, but Mings came in, there was a vision for him under Smith. I'll be one of the first to admit that when I saw we were linked with him, I thought, why? We've already got about 9 left backs. We don't need him. Put him in at centre back as well. I'm thinking, you can't put Tyrone Mings at centre back. I think he's been massively influential, especially as a captain over the last season or so, and as a vice captain, as a leader on the pitch. There's a few other people I've put up there. McGinn would be one of them. He's played a massive part in our resurgence. Yep. You've also got Emi Martinez for the culture that he brings to the team and for his world-class abilities. I think another 2 players I could mention, and they may be a bit more head scratchers, but it's about that culture and what they bring to the team as players and moving them forward, not just on the pitch all the time, though both of them are held in high regards through everybody that they played with, but also what they do off the pitch. James Chester, you could put as an influential person to have around the squad and the team. And John Terry would be the other one. And you could even factor in that John Terry signing, along with Dean Smith, was influential as well in regards to the backroom team. But John McGinn's got to be up there. John McGinn's one of the better players that we've had in the last 10 years. And it won't be long until we see the best of him again. And he's getting linked with, I mean, United were after him again this summer and being linked with him. So he's not crap by all means. He's not as consistent as he was. And you watch, it won't be long until he winds one up and bangs it into the top corner from outside the box. I mean, one of them's got to go in one day.
All probabilities.
But we need that blood and thunder John McGinn back. And he's played well this season. I thought against West Ham at home that he was playing very well before he got shifted to the right side of midfield. Maybe it's that doesn't suit him as much. Maybe he needs to be back on that left side of midfield. But, it is what it is. And if he does get put onto the subs bench, it won't be long before he's showing his worth and fans are realising just how good he is. And I think that's part of it. It's frustrating that he isn't hitting the levels of consistency, and that's why he's an easy target, because fans know how good he can be.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough summary. And, especially going full circle, if Louise leaves, then we need everybody to step up, in terms of next season, if United haven't drawn his name out of the transfer tombola hat again in the summer transfer window. I mean, for McGinn, probably his best chance to get a move to Man United is moving to PSV first, and then he might eventually, or Ajax, and then he might get a move over. But whether or not McGinn is in the team on Saturday, 11 players, unless some far-fetched soap scenario happens. 11 players will take the field for Villa on Saturday against Leicester, and hopefully 11 leave at round about 4:45, just before 5 o'clock. What are they going to be leaving with, Will? Let's get a prediction time. What are you going for as a score?
They're going to be leaving with Brendan Rodgers' head, because he's going to get the chop. I think you get the chop regardless of the result, to be honest with you, with some of the comments he's made. We're going to take the 3 points. We're going to go over there to the Walkers Stadium, the King Power Stadium, Filbert Street, the Chris Bowl, whatever it is you want to call it. And we're going to see a nice Aston Villa smash and grab, but it's going to be somebody smashing the window in, jumping in and taking the money out of the till, feeling a bit more confident and going and taking the tellies that are in there, and then even feeling more confident, having a little route round the back and taking some of the sweeties and the handbags. Right. We're going to go there. Leicester will score against us. Everybody scores against us, unfortunately, at the moment. And that's no reflection on Emi Martinez. I don't want to make anybody upset with comments that could be construed that way. But
great game against Arsenal.
Second goal, though.
Can't have it all.
Great game against Man City, considering he got injured. Fantastic. Yep. He couldn't do anything about that goal. Couldn't against West Ham either, really. But Leicester get one. Aston Villa, I'm toying between two numbers. I'm going to go ultra optimistic because I know Russ has been a little bit disappointed in me recently as well. I'm going to say Leicester City 1, Aston Villa 4. I think we're going to have a game where we go out and we take advantage of them. I think the Leicester fans will get on their back. Leon Bailey will cause some trouble, and I think little Phil will as well.
Well, so full character mode, positive Will coming back for the 4 after a couple of games away, venturing down negative street. He is now back full positive mode. I started the podcast referring to a prediction that I made that went very badly wrong in respect of Chelsea and Thomas Tuchel. And when I made the prediction, I thought I was fairly comfortable in it. So imagine my shock when he got sacked. I'm making the prediction now, and I've got a looking glass, and I'm looking into the future right now, and I know that there is a strong possibility this time next week that I am going to be called out for this prediction in terms of what the hell were you doing? But we have a narrative, or Will's tried to push a narrative on this show of positive Will and negative Baz, and hasn't really been borne out this season in terms of the predictions that we've made, because they've either been largely the same, or in some cases you've been more negative than me. But in order to help our marketing team, going to try and get that back on track in terms of the light and the shade. This is going to be Rodgers' last stand at Leicester. They need a point. They need points. I think if he loses, it could be curtains. I agree with you in respect to that. I think attacking wise, they have a decent team still. And they can cause us problems that they have done. And you mentioned, I don't think we're going to keep a clean sheet. I think they can't be as bad as they were against Brighton. And as we've mentioned before, there is a penchant for teams staring into the abyss to get a result against Villa. So, in full knowledge that next week's show could be me being laughed at, I want to go for a draw. I think it's going to be Leicester 1, Villa 1. And I think the circus then rolls on to next Friday when we play Southampton. But speaking of the circus, it's leaving town for this week, because that brings us to the end of this episode of Talk of the Trinity. We've gone some places. We hope you've enjoyed coming along with us for the journey. And if you still want to go to more exciting destinations, then you go and check out our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby we will be posting all of the news in the lead up to Saturday's game. There'll probably be some polls on there, some more, some interaction, some comments. Get yourself involved. You can go and check out our YouTube channel, Talking the Trinity, for all our previous episodes, some of which you'll see us, some of which you won't. Or if you just like the pure audio version, if you're out and about traveling, or, if you just like settling down on, in your armchair, just with a lampshade, glass of cognac or something, and listening to us free speakers, go on to our audio providers: Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. You can find us if you just want to listen to us. That is what we will say. And before I pass you over to Mr. Trinity himself for his final thoughts, thank you very much for listening, watching, interacting. Really do appreciate it. Don't go too hard on the prediction, the 1-1. I hope I'm wrong. I'll be with you next time. Cheers for now.
Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. As Baz says, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you are one of those people who are sat at home in your armchair with your cognac or your Pepsi Max, whatever it is, listening to us, some advice: get a life. But anyway, next week you'll be able to tell us which one of us will be the class clown, who will be the ringmaster, or will we both be being fed to the lions when Leicester do us over? Hopefully not. We'll join you next time if you join us for that Southampton preview, and I'm sure there'll be something about searching for saints or saints and sinners in there. But until then, Douglas Luiz stays with the Villa. Baz would have been happy either way. We know he's an Arsenal fan. Stay with us. Will it be the Lions or the Foxes that come out on top? Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. Up the Villa.